I think I will forever wonder what the future would have been for Hanoi Rocks if Razzle hadn't died in that car crash with Vince Neil.
I think Mike Monroe is the best club singer frontman that I've ever seen in my life.
Even though Hanoi Rocks never got, the fame that we think they deserved, people who know that band fucking worship that band.
I think they did the right thing in breaking up after Razzles died.
I think Hanoi Rocks were the coolest fucking looking band of that entire scene.
It feels like it was cursed from the beginning.
I just think, when you talk about the history of hair metal and the great influences, you have to say Hanoi Rocks was there first.
The hair metal guru from Warren to Crew. The hair metal guru. Never forget Charlie too.
Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru, and holy shit, we got a new face to feature here. It's my buddy Marco, and we have been friends on X forever, but we have been talking about doing a video together to discuss a band that needs their own video, and that is Hanoi Rocks. So with that, Marco, my friend from Italy, who also spent some time in America, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Anthony. Oh my, I'm so glad we're finally freaking doing this.
Yeah, so this has been
We've
in
been
the
trying for a
planning
long time.
stages for months, but we were just talking about logistically. You spend some time over here in the States, in California. You spend half of your time in Italy, so trying to work out the schedules. But finally,
Yeah.
it's here. So in order to do our Hanoi Rocks video, we talked about doing songs, we talked about ranking albums, but we decided the first direction we were going to go is 10 things I think about Hanoi Rocks. And this might come up in the 10 things, but we just said before we started, how isn't it just, like Hanoi is always the band that you think is going to break at some point, but just they have never entered the national consciousness.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we were saying it at least a few minutes ago. The band is feels like it was cursed from the beginning.
Sure.
This black cloud over their heads, and they're like, okay, turn it into rain, into hail, snow, something. Just stop following me around.
Yeah.
No matter what, like something always happened because those guys were supposed to be rock stars. I'm talking like multi-platinum rock stars. They influenced more bands than we can count. And
Exactly.
stuff just didn't work out.
Yeah.
Just didn't work out no matter what.
And well, in a way, I'm glad it worked out this way because you get to be on. But I was saying, like, I've asked other people on the channel, like, hey, anybody a big Hanoi Rocks fan? And I just keep getting so I'm like, fuck, where are all the Hanoi Rocks lovers? But with this video, we are going to create more Hanoi
I
Rocks
agree.
fans.
I
So
agree.
we're gonna do, and hey, I'm gonna put in your X handle will be on here. So follow Marco. There's a bunch of us that are on X, always talking about this, the greatest musical genre in the history of music. So you can follow him on X. Follow me on X at Hair Metal Guru. And remember, every Saturday from 6 to 8 Central Time, I host Hair Metal Mansion on Rock 101 KLOL. So it would be awesome if you would check that out. And in the comments or in the description, there is Hair Metal Guru merch. No shit. You can buy hoodies, you can buy girls' shirts, men's t-shirts. We're trying to get more stuff. So, hey, whatever. If you want, you have that option as well. So, with that, 10 things I think about Hanoi Rocks. Marco, why don't you kick us off? What's your number 10?
So I think, starting from the bottom, that their last live album, Rock and Roll Divorce, was probably the saddest live album in rock history. You can feel it when you play it that you have three band members that have been there since the beginning that are just like, this is our adieu. This is it. We're done. I can't even imagine what it was like for Berg being there on stage, probably with a band he really wanted to play with. And that was it, the swan song. And you can literally hear it is a swan song in every song on that record, which is kind of a bummer because even then, even on that, you can tell that we're a notch above anyone else live.
And that was recorded in 85.
Yes.
right before they finally split.
Yes.
Renee comes in and plays drums, right? Right.
Renee was playing bass.
Renee's playing
Yeah.
bass, and yes, and Terry Chimes
Yes.
was playing drums. Excuse me, I was
Yeah.
like, I knew Renee was replaced somebody. So yeah, that came out 85, and that was kind of the last gasp. I'll be honest, I haven't spent much time with that
You
rock
can.
and roll
You can. It's
record.
actually. It's seriously. It is to me the saddest live album I've ever heard.
Yeah. Now I
It's.
want to go check it out because I need to hear that. But
Yeah, you'll hear it even in Michael and Rose comments, like in between, the intros to songs, like the references to this is probably the last time we're gonna play this. It's just sad.
yeah,
And given what had happened before, difficult to imagine that the vibe was, that positive. So
sure.
that's my first one. Or
Sure.
my 10th one.
And it's a band that knows they're done. I'm sure at that time it's the last thing they do. So, but I'm glad you brought that up because I know of that. I just never when I think of Hanoi Rocks live, I always listen to All Those Wasted
Oh,
Years,
of course.
obviously. So, yeah.
That's the band firing all cylinders. This
Oh
one is
man.
the band going, our cylinders are kind of grinding to a halt. Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay. All right, my number 10. I think I didn't discover Hanoi Rocks until 1989, 4 years after they broke up, when guys like Axl Rose and Sebastian Bach started talking about them in interviews. And that's when the Guns N' Roses offshoot label, Uzi Suicide,
Z. Yeah.
reissued the catalog. And you can
Yes.
probably see there's the poster back there. Uh,
Yeah.
and right below it is a Michael Monroe poster. And in fact, I'm just going to move so you can see it. But there is the official
Yeah. Lean on
poster
it.
that
Right.
came out in 89.
Yeah.
And so, so suddenly, because these big rock stars are finally talking about Hanoi Rocks being like an influence. And, in 1989, I would have died for Guns N' Roses and Skid Row. So it wasn't until later in the game that I started hearing about them. And it was so cool. And I'm going to get into something that I thought was going to happen later because of that, that big push for
Right.
Hanoi Rocks. And in fact, this is a magazine ad for how come I can never figure out how to do that? For the when those albums got released right there.
Yep.
So anyway, it was awesome to see these bands that I loved talking about an influence so positively, and that's how I got into Hanoi Rocks.
I got in a little before you, which
Yep.
was at the time of, their last record, but definitely having Guns and Skid talk them up. Well, Guns went well beyond that.
Yeah.
Was a turning point. Like the poster you have back there, which is the cover of Lean on It, which I think is one of the best compilation albums that you can possibly buy. If you're going to start with Hanoi Rocks, you never spent any time on the band, start with that one because it's
Yeah.
one hit after the other, after the other, after the other. And it's such a fun record. So,
Yes.
yeah. But which leads me, if you want, and if I can, to sort of my next
Yes.
one, because I think that beyond Guns N' Roses and maybe Poison and maybe a lot of the bands in the LA scene or in New York or some of the European glam bands, I think their influence extended well beyond that. I think if you look up at Seattle, Mother Love Bone, right, is heavily influenced by Hanoi Rocks.
Totally.
So I think their influences go well beyond hair metal and seeped into a ton of other genres. They were that talented and also kind of that fucked up.
Right, right. And I'm gonna get into something about that. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't just hair metal, they were a major punk influence.
Yes.
And I mean it's easy to hear that in their sound. I think their look really influenced hair metal. I don't necessarily hear Hanoi Rocks in the sound of Poison and Cinderella, maybe a little bit, but more punk in their sound, more hair metal in their look. But yeah,
100%.
their reach went all over the place. Totally.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. My number 9, I think Hanoi Rocks were the coolest fucking looking band of that entire scene. And Michael Monroe was probably the prototype of the lead singer, the look for the hair metal bands in the 80s. And he was easily the prettiest lead singer of all time. In fact, I'm gonna eventually in the next few weeks, I'm gonna release an episode. And I'm not gonna tell you what exactly what happened, but we did an episode on the hottest dudes in hair metal. And I will just tell you that Michael Monroe
He
made
must be up there with like Brett Michaels and Stevie Rochelle,
sure,
right?
exactly. So they in my opinion, they kind of combined the New York Dolls and the Rolling Stones into one like flamboyant, just cool as shit, hard to follow
How
package
on earth did they do that from Finland? I have no
from
idea, but God
Finland.
bless them.
Yes, exactly. So I think when you say hair metal, people think Poison, and I can agree with that. But when I think of who epitomized the look, I look
Yeah.
at Hanoi Rocks.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. My shirt doesn't really kind of, but your shirt, yes, has the color. Fucking A. I mean, they had the hats, Michael Monroe's look, how they
Gold
dressed.
lame, like
So,
boots, like bangles, and yeah,
yeah,
that
ex-
was rock and roll.
exactly. All right, that
My,
finishes our number 9s, and we
my number 8 is a relatively simple one. I think my favorite Hanoi Rocks song is Oriental Beat. And I've given a lot of thought to this because, like, is it Malibu Beach Nightmare? Is it Taxi Driver? Truth is that I can boogie to that song every freaking day. You put it in a car stereo in my headphones, I can play it on repeat, which again leads me to how many bands were able to ever release a tune like that. It just sticks your brain like freaking bubblegum and you're done. That's it. You can't get it out of your head. That's my favorite.
what song did you say again?
Oriental Beat.
Okay, okay, I was like at first I was like Mental Beat,
Uh,
Oriental Beat. Yes,
Oriental Beat
I
by
love
far.
that. I love that song. I think my favorite is probably Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
Oh yeah.
Um, but
I'm,
yeah,
I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna get to that one with my number one.
okay, okay. Well, hey, that was your number 8. Let's move on to my number 8 because I think it was a mistake to issue Up Around the Bend, the Creedence Clearwater Revival cover, as the first single off of Two Steps from the Move. It's a great song, and maybe it could have been a single, but not the first one. This is your major label debut in America. You need to come out, in my opinion, with a Hanoi rock song, and they had the perfect one. Boulevard of Broken Dreams is my favorite Hanoi song, and the song that you come out with that one. Maybe you follow that up with Around the Bend, and then you got the ballad Don't You Ever Leave Me, which is amazing. Now,
Okay.
it might not have mattered what happened because of the deal with
Obviously.
Razzle,
Obviously.
but I just didn't think a cover was the best move for a band that had already been kicking around overseas for 4 years. They needed to come out strong with one of their songs, and
I
Boulevard of
agree.
Broken Dreams fit the bill perfectly.
I'll add to it if you want. Boulevard of Broken Dreams in 85. Which part of the global music map was the hottest? Was Sunset Boulevard. How well does that song represent the Sunset Strip
Yeah.
in the heyday? I mean, it's just, sometimes you wonder, right?
Yes.
Because it almost feel like it was written, had it been written 6 years later in 91 where Nirvana happened, then the thing would have just clicked, right?
Yeah.
It was just the perfect description. I totally agree with you.
Yep.
That would have, I think that would have broken charts, barring what happened, which
Yep.
we're going to talk about.
Yep. Okay, we're moving on to our number 7s. What is your number 7?
My number 7 is I think they did the right thing in breaking up after Razzles died.
Yeah.
After his death. It's easy to talk about, replacing drummers. It's one thing if, you break up with the drummer.
Yeah.
But that was, again, not to quote another song by them, that was a tragedy.
Yeah.
And they always refer to that stage in their career as a true band of brothers. I'm
Right.
sure there was some tension, Sammy and with a couple of the other members. Uh,
There's Charlie. Yeah,
it's
she's got an
my
OnlyFans
Charlie.
and for $10 a month. You can see 8 boobies. That's right. Anyway, feel free to keep going.
But I think it was the right thing to do. When the chemistry of the band cannot be the same. The only thing that you can do is maybe take a break for a couple of years,
Right.
and regroup rather than trying. And I think them trying to like keep going because they really felt they were on the verge of making a break.
Yep.
I think it just made it really sad, which is the reason then it took him, I don't know, forever to get back together.
Yeah.
But it was the right thing to do.
I I tend to agree. There's a part of me because, I mean, in stuff that I've read, Andy McCoy, and I'm gonna get into some stuff about his addiction. The guy was always, experimenting under the influence. And I've heard that was causing some tension. Michael Monroe's kind of been a straight edge person, at least from what I know.
Yeah.
So, you know, is there the possibility that fuck our drummer died? I'm already getting sick of your ass because you're out of control. Let's just break up. But yeah, was it, it was probably the right thing to do because shit, who knows if Andy McCoy even survives?
Yeah.
After that he has to take some time off and maybe kind of rediscover who he is. And he still was messing around, but I think Hanoi taking a break and breaking up, yes, is probably the right move. All right. Awesome. My number 7. I think Charlie's annoying the shit out of me because you're sitting here annoying me. I'm just kidding. I think I was shocked when I read an interview with Slash from Guns N' Roses in 1994 and him telling the interview when he was asked, "Hey, what have you been listening to lately?" And he says, "The new Michael Monroe project, Demolition 23." I'd never heard of that. This is 1994. There's no internet or anything.
Yeah.
So it was like all of a sudden I'm like, holy fuck. I have to find this out because I'll be honest, when grunge came in, I was assuming, Michael Monroe was like the prettiest of the lead singers.
Yeah.
I was assuming you'd never hear anything from him again, you know? And to hear that he comes out with this punk project and
Killer album.
it's a great album and it got released in 1994. And what was breaking big in America in 1994, even though it was a little more on the poppier side, but punk was starting to happen. And so, then you might think, well, shit, maybe this is the time. Maybe this Demolition 23, obviously it didn't happen. It
Didn't
didn't
happen.
get released. I was looking for imports for years for that
Yeah.
Demolition 23 album, but
I
if
think the
you
first
remember,
version I got, it was a Japanese release in Europe.
yes,
I can't even, oh my God, it must have cost me.
yeah. Yeah. But little Steven, who played with Bruce Springsteen, was involved in that project. And then then you found out like right before that he had been in a band with Steve Stevens. Steve
Yeah.
Stevens called Jerusalem Slim, which he
Yeah.
kind of disavows, that project. But anyway,
I
again,
mean, I like that album.
yeah,
I have that one too. To be honest with you, I never freaking play it.
yeah,
While the Demolition 23, oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. There's 2, 3 songs off of that record that
yeah.
I've played. I don't think a month goes by without me
Yeah.
playing one of those tunes.
Uh,
It's such a great
Yeah.
record.
if you haven't listened to Demolition 23, I would at least say go listen to Hammersmith Palais and Nothing's All Right. 2 fucking
Yeah.
phenomenal songs. So
Yeah.
anyway, it was another time where you're like, shit, maybe this is when a Hanoi related project will happen. It didn't, but it was just shocking in 1994 to hear about that.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. We are moving on to our number 6s. What is
My number My number six, actually, you already alluded to it. I don't think there's any band out there except for some of the, more underground Hollywood, never got signed bands that really blended punk and glam
Yeah.
the way these guys did. Because a lot of, the more famous bands, I think, managed to mix a lot of either glam and pop, say Poison, or glam and metal, say Motley Crue. But the way these guys just put together this glam look, glam sticky bubble gum on top of raw punk,
Yeah.
I think is something that I've never heard before and I haven't really heard since. What you hear is influences in other bands, but there has not been a full Hanoi Rocks copycat.
I completely agree. And I mean, most people who follow the channel know I love punk. And if you love punk and you love hair metal, then Hanoi Rocks is just kind of the natural go-to band.
Again,
So, you know,
yeah,
yeah. And maybe I mean it probably hurt them because in the mid 80s, a lot of, that wasn't where America was,
nope, no,
unfortunately. So, yeah. But I completely agree. They combined those two
like
genres
like
perfectly,
nobody
and
else.
nobody else did that.
Like you and I talked briefly while we're trying to support the guys at Demon Doll Records, like
Yep.
about the glamour punks, right?
Yep.
That's the only other glam punk band that I can think of that really blended the two.
Yes.
But the glamour punks just went super extreme, right?
Yeah.
These guys, the ear for melody that Hanoi Rocks have
Yeah.
is unparalleled, in my opinion.
Yep. Yep. And shit, you know what? I ordered like 15 CDs from Demon Doll.
Yeah.
I still have them unopened because I'm probably gonna do a video on them at some point. But anyway,
Well, that'd be cool.
yeah,
You know what? If you want, I mean, you should. If you want to unpack those and talk about them, because there's plenty of bands there I probably spent a lot of time with.
sure, yeah, we can maybe, yeah, let's talk about that when we get done. All right, my number six. I think I was seriously disturbed when I read the book Neighborhood Threat on Tour with Iggy Pop by a guy named Alvin Gibbs who used to play bass in a band called the UK Subs. Well, Alvin Gibbs got hired for this tour, and he was the one who suggested Andy McCoy to Iggy Pop to play guitar. So, in one of the chapters, the band is overseas, and they have, like a fairly big band goes overseas. They get somebody who hangs out with them. Hey, goes in and gives them this, maybe gives them rides if they need to, like their gopher. So, we talked a little bit about Andy McCoy being known for his drug use
Yeah.
constantly. I mean, the fact that the guy's still fucking alive is shocking. And when you see pictures of him at various points, there's times where he looks like he's about to keel over any time. Anyway, this gopher, Andy McCoy, has him go find heroin for him. And he tells Alvin Gibbs this. And then Alvin Gibbs is like, starts noticing that this gopher kid starts looking like shit. And he asks Andy McCoy, he's like, what happened to him? And he goes, well, I got him to try some and he really likes it. So it's really fucked up to be honest, and it's kind of disturbing. And so I don't mean to use it as a funny thing because it's not funny, but it just goes to show you how, like, somebody who's addicted, which Andy McCoy was throughout his career, they don't think right. And I just remember reading in that book going, holy fuck, he got somebody hooked on hair. Who knows what happens after that. But anyway, it was fucked up. It was a really good book. There's tons of Andy McCoy stories. It's called Neighborhood Threat on Tour with Iggy Pop. It's by Alvin Gibbs. That's where you'll find that story. That's my number six.
That's a really sad one.
Shit.
'Cause
Yeah. Yeah. It's
the
not,
80s were dangerous for this.
oh my God. Not cool. And like back then, I mean, I'm sure bands were off, hey, yeah, you want some blow? But just to hear that they got somebody to try heroin, knowing what we know now, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's good read though. Good read. All right, we are moving on to your number 5.
So my number 5, I think that my favorite album by Hanoi Rocks is Self-Destruction Blues.
Okay.
And I know I'm gonna get some flack somewhere because theoretically it's a compilation, but I mean, it might be. But if those are the singles and the B-sides, once again, it tells you how fucking good that band is because it can patch that together and you get, Love's an Injection, Cafe Avenue, Kill City Kill. Like, beer and a cigarette. And like, I'm sorry, these are your discarded songs?
Yeah.
Give them to like an average band because they need it.
Yeah.
It's just they're just phenomenal. It's the one that is for me the easiest to play from start to finish,
Yep.
excluding the live album.
You know what? I agree. And I'm not just saying that because you're saying it. I might go with Two Steps from the Move being my number 1. But if that's my number 1, Self-Destruction Blues is my second. And I was right with you. I was like, what? These are like songs that didn't make original albums? Are you shitting
Exactly.
me? So if I was gonna recommend one album, it would be either Two Steps or Self-Destruction. So
100%. You can't go wrong with either.
right with you. Right with you. Okay. Uh, I think if you're not very aware of the career of Hanoi Rocks, and judging by their album sales, you're probably not. You might not be aware that the first Hanoi Rocks album, Bangkok Shocks, Saigon Shakes, Hanoi Rocks, was released in February of 1981. For historical context, Motley Crue's Too Fast for Love came out in November of 1981. So I don't say that to like take away from the importance of Motley Crue. They're
Oh, no.
obviously legends. They obviously kickstarted the scene in America, but damn it, Hanoi Rocks came out before they did, and I think they deserve a bunch of credit that they've never really gotten for being the at the forefront of that scene. And part of obviously they're from Finland, so it wasn't gonna. But I just think when you talk about the history of hair metal and the great influences, you have to say Hanoi Rocks was there first.
I would high five you if we were in the same room.
So, so yeah, I've always been like, yeah, if you want to know who fucking everybody was learning from, go pick
Yes.
up Bangkok Shocks, and that was there first. So yeah. All right, we are on to your number 4.
So my number 4 is, I think 12 Shots on the Rocks is one of the best comeback albums in hard rock heavy metal history. I think that album is so solid. I think in our favorite genre, the only comeback album that is in that kind of level is Infestation by a Rat. And to me, that's a huge compliment because I think it's one of the best comeback albums ever. And I think 12 Shots is such a great record. I mean, you have 3 of the original members plus 2 members from the Electric Boys.
Yep.
It's just a freaking killer lineup. I love that record to bits.
Do you remember who was it that put that out? The label. You might not.
Oh,
If you don't remember, it's okay.
I can't remember.
I remember them putting out Hanoi Rocks, and they put out a couple other albums that I fucking love too. A band called The Bones. Anyway, I have not listened to it for a while. Now but I do remember listening to the shit out of it when I came out and thinking, you know what? This can stand up with their earlier shit. So
Dude,
12 Shots on the Rock.
One Day Late and $1 Short is up there with Boulevard Broken Dreams in terms of one of the best songs I've ever written.
Fashion was on that album, right? I'm trying to think of what other songs.
I think it is on that one or the next one.
Oh, is it? Oh, maybe it wasn't.
I think it's on Streetport. I think it's on Streetport. I think it's the
maybe
next
you're
one.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, those 3 albums are great. But the first one, to me, 12 Shots on the Rock is fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I think it's that one, another Hostile Takeover and Street Poetry that came out after. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so awesome.
Yes. And you never thought you were that late you were gonna get a Hanoi Rocks reunion. And shit, they came out and did it.
Oh.
All right. I think one of the smartest decisions Hanoi Rocks and specifically Michael Monroe made was, and you can tell me if maybe I'm way off base here, but was the drastic change in Mike's vocals from the first album to the later albums, especially on Two Steps for the Move. If you listen to the earlier, especially the first album, the first Hanoi Rocks album, his vocals are always really high pitched.
Yeah.
I mean, listen to the first version of Don't You Ever Leave Me on the debut. His voice always sounds like it's about to crack.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And I love those earlier albums. But then, and especially on Two Steps from the Move, it's lower, it's tougher, it's grittier. And
Also got a great producer, right? And someone that
Bob
taught them,
Ezrin
right? Yeah.
on Two Steps from the Move. And so was it the band? Was it Michael Monroe going, fuck, I'm struggling to sing that shit? But whoever did, I love that grittier sound in his vocals. So I thought that was a great move with his voice.
I agree 100%. And you know, I remember reading an interview with Axel back in the day when he was still talking to the world.
Yeah.
Saying that one of the challenges for him was after they started touring for Appetite, in support of Appetite, was that it just couldn't deliver the same level of high, pitch, screeches that he's famous for, night in and night out for hours. And he had to get a vocal coach.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that Hanoi Rocks in Finland, as a sort of almost self-financed little punk band, could afford that. So, right, you got to assume that there was an adjustment, partly because he became more of a pro and he realized what his limitation was, and probably the label saying, you know what, we're going to give you a producer who's going to work with you.
Yeah. And like you make a valid point. Once you go out on the, you can sing that way, fine. But then you go out on the road and you try to sing that way for 150 shows, and you're like, okay, I can do it here and there, but I can't do it consistently. We're gonna have to adjust. So, and I think this is way off topic, but that hurt a lot of our favorite hair metal bands.
100%.
Sebastian Bach on that first Skid Row album. You can't recreate that shit. It's damn near impossible. So, yeah. All right. Okay. That moves us on to our number 3. Marco, what's your number 3?
So my number 3 links up really well with what we just said, because I think Mike Monroe is the best club singer frontman that I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen in clubs a lot of hair metal vocalists, some of the greats, some of the lesser knowns. No one. I had the pleasure and the luck to see him in London at the Astoria on the 12 Shots from the Rock, on the Rocks tour.
Yeah.
And so, Andy was there, Nasty was there. It was just mesmerizing. I have seldom been in a club packed with everyone singing and this guy knowing exactly how to move the crowd, and not just physically, right? Not the Black and Lawless, I'm going to split you in two. No. Right. Just emotionally, how people I don't think there was a single person that came out of that club not high on the notes and just giddy from the performance they had seen. So to me, he seriously is the best club singer I've ever seen.
I've never fucking seen. And so he came to Minneapolis at one point, and I was like, I am going to that fucking show if I got to go by. Minneapolis is about 4 hours from me. And I think I was back in my military days, and I think I had guard drill and I couldn't fucking go.
Yeah.
Then I was this close, I shit you not, with a friend of mine, Lori, shout out, who follows the channel. She lives in Arizona. She's a huge Faster Pussycat fan. And Michael Monroe just played the Whiskey with Faster Pussycat, right? Like yesterday.
Last weekend, yeah.
Yesterday. What?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, fuck, I'm coming. And then, well, actually, it was the shit with Tammy Down and his girlfriend. And then we were like, they're probably not going to play. Well, so we didn't plan it out. Anyway, I see tons of YouTube clips.
Right.
Exactly right. And I think, even though Hanoi Rocks never got, the fame that we think they deserved, people who know that band fucking worship that band.
Yes.
They are psycho about it. And I wouldn't be surprised. You know, I mean, like, hey, shout out to everybody that follows the channel. A lot of the videos do really well, but I'm excited to put this out because you just don't see shit about Hanoi Rocks
So true.
on
So true.
YouTube. So I think fans are going to be pretty pumped to hear us giving them, the credit that we
I
think they
hope so.
deserve. So
Hope
I
so.
hope so, yeah. All right,
What's your number three?
my number three. I think the best and biggest missed opportunity for Hanoi Rocks or Hanoi Rocks related project to blow up on the national stage was in 1989 when Michael Monroe released the Not Fakin' It album. Everything was set. GNR had been promoting Hanoi. They released their all the Hanoi Rocks records. Axel appeared in the Dead Jailer rock and roll video.
Yeah.
Mike was getting attention in ads in the music magazines. But this is where I'm going to feel kind of bad. I don't think the album matched up to what the expectations were. I really like it, you know, but I don't know that I love it. I think Dead Jailer Rock and Roll is really good. I really like Not Faking It, or
Yeah.
not Faking It. Man with No Eyes.
Yes.
The rest of it is very good, but I don't think like I really only revisit a couple songs from it. And I feel like it feels to me like a studio creation. Session players, it wasn't a band project. So it's a good album, but he had the look. It came out in 1989. All these factors were in their favor, and it just didn't happen. And it bums the shit out of me that it didn't.
I think you nailed it though, because the album feels a little thin.
Yes.
There's two, three great songs, like you mentioned a couple, but there's no depth. And it's 1989. And you think about what came out of that year, like you get buried. Unless you're lucky and one of the videos breaks through, you still have Guns N' Roses riding high, but it's also the year that Feel Good came out. I like Pump came out, Skid Row.
Skid Row,
Um,
Warrant.
I mean, Warrant, right? Detonator came out and no one gave a line. So, unfortunately, I think, as you said, is a combination of the two factors.
Yeah.
The lack of depth is just not that great, right?
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not that great. And the fact that there was so much competition and he
Yeah.
couldn't really go out and support it because he did not have a band.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's such a wasted opportunity because that could have made him a massive rock star in the US.
In 80, there were so many albums came out that year.
Yeah.
Like when Poison and Bon Jovi and Cinderella exploded in 86, they were signing everybody, and it seems like all these albums came out in 89. So
Yeah.
to break that year was a difficult year. It's unfortunate that that album didn't come out in 87 or something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yes, it just wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Okay, we're moving on to your number two.
My number two is a bit of an oddball. I think that Sammy Yaffa joining Jet Boy was the most perfect fit anyone can think of. Aside from clearly the sad story of the previous bass player dying of an overdose, Jet Boy. If you listen to some of Jet Boy's earlier demos, so the songs that did not end up getting all polished off and turn into some sort of glossy Poison version of Jet Boy that the album was turned into. Old songs like Don't Mess With My Hair, Car Sex are so reeking of Hanoi Rocks vibes that I understand how the band wanted him, and he probably had one rehearsal with them. Go, yeah, I think I'm going to fit right in.
Yeah.
So I just urge people if they like Jet Boy, but they only know them for the two albums that they officially released. There are CDs out there, like songs out there on Spotify or on YouTube or whatever that feature their old songs.
Yeah.
And they're totally worth checking out together with the Hanoi Rocks, and you'll hear what I mean.
Yeah, isn't there, and I don't have them, and Probably haven't spent much time with that stuff. But wasn't there a CD released of that earlier shit?
Yes, you can find.
I
I
don't
think
remember what
one
it's
is
called.
called "A Day in the Glamorous Life."
Yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
That has a lot of those.
Yeah.
There's a recent vinyl reissue on Cleopatra. I think I actually posted about it earlier today. That has those songs plus the original version of "Feel the Shake." That
Yeah.
is fantastic. So you can find them, and I think
Yeah.
they're even on like streaming media. So you'll find them.
Here,
They're
this will be
worth,
off
they're worth.
topic, but I want to hear your opinion on this. I said on X the other day that I think or I wondered if something that hurt Jet Boy, your look mattered so much, and having a lead singer with a mohawk was just nobody was doing that. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, that kind of shit seemed to matter. How you looked in '88 was
yeah.
so I just wondered if that mohawk kind of, people,
I
oh, that's not what we do.
I think I think there were like a few things
Sure.
that did not help them.
Yeah.
One getting dropped by Enigma and then ended up on MCA or vice versa, which delayed the album, which it means you missed the window that Poison jumped through.
Hmm.
And definitely, you were talking about the pretty boy blonde singer from Sunset Strip.
Yep.
I don't mean to be rude to Mr. Finn or
Yeah.
anything, but
Yep.
having someone looks like a straight edge punk
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily really fit
Right.
with yeah. So I'm with you. That did not help.
Right. Okay. Awesome. All right. My number two. Okay. I think I was fucking amazed. And pardon my language, but I swear a lot. When Hanoi Rocks was given a major role in that TV series Peacemaker, which was created by James Gunn, starred John Cena. Now, hair metal is all over that series. It's a huge
I
part
think you
of
and I
what
talked
makes.
about it on X. I think you and I talked about it on
Yeah.
X.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sure we did.
Yes.
Um, but and I learned about it on X, and I don't know who, but somebody was like, "Dude, you got to check out this series." So maybe that was you. And so
Yeah.
I went and I was like, "Holy fuck!" But hair metal is a huge part of the series, but no band is as prevalent as Hanoi Rocks on that show. They
Yeah.
use multiple songs from the band. One of the characters has an 11th Street Kids, which is a Hanoi song, if you didn't know, an 11th Street Kids tattoo. The
Yeah.
name of the gang's group chat is 11th Street Kids. And in the first season, John Cena's character professes that Hanoi Rocks are the greatest band of all time. So to see
During
that
that
happen,
van, right? During the van, and they talk about
yes,
it's
in the band scene, to
yeah.
see that happen in 2022, like I have goosebumps right now, was fucking amazing for a fan of that band because you're like, we've all been dying for them to get recognized. And so for this
Yes.
kick-ass TV show to have Hanoi Rocks is a big part of it. I salute James Gunn for
I
creating
was
that
about to
show
say,
and featuring that band.
I'll echo that. Yes, 100%.
If you haven't seen it, and I know it's available on like, I don't know, one of those, like you go
I
to,
think it's on HBO Max,
yeah,
whatever it's called now.
Max or something. Like if you have Amazon Prime, you can sign up for like a free week of it probably.
It's
And yeah,
totally worth it.
it's
Totally worth it.
hilarious. And there is so much hair metal in it. Like now I need to watch it again as soon as we get done with this. I'm gonna start.
Oh my god, the first big fight scene, you see a Leather Boys with Electric Toys, Pretty Boy Fluid, like LP flying around. So yes.
And he's John Cena's wearing like a Faster Pussycat shirt at some point, and then
Yes.
he's like stealing albums from somebody, and you see Cinderella and like obscure hair metal. Because
Yes.
apparently James Gunn is like a huge fan, so he's like intertwined that. Anyway,
Even the intro song
yeah,
to every episode, it's like Wigwam, right?
it's like
I mean,
Wigwam, who's a
yeah,
more modern day hair metal band.
yeah.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. All right, I'm dying to hear what your number one is. What do you got?
Number one, I think it's going to be relatively straightforward.
Sure.
Two steps from the move was the album was going to break into the US. Every planet was aligning for them to get the big break. They were going to have a big tour. They're going to have singles. It was just everything was ready for them to make it to the big league, and then the accident happened, and we only have a bunch of what ifs.
Yeah.
But I truly believe, who knows, right? But I believe that not on the first single, because I agree with you, there was a wrong pick, but the two following singles would have broken the band and turned them into multi-platinum artists. It was also the time where America was ready for that type of band to play live in arenas.
Yeah.
And
And
it was just a matter of time.
And even if it didn't happen on Two Steps from the Move, I mean, if they get to put out another album in '86,
Yeah.
when that look and Michael Monroe was the king of that look, maybe it happens on the second album they release in America. So I will piggyback because my number one is I think I will forever wonder what the future would have been for Hanoi Rocks if Razzle hadn't died in that car crash with Vince Neil. And you just said it. They released their first major label deal, produced by Bob Ezrin, who had produced Pink Floyd's The Wall, Kiss's Destroyer. Everything was set. All the magazines were talking about them. And yeah, so I just will always. And when you're a diehard fan of Hanoi Rocks, that's what a lot of people, a lot of people talk about that. Oh, what if? And, you can what if yourself to death. It's unfortunate, but still, it's hard not to, it's hard not. All right. I just had to let Charlie in. Okay. So that gets us to the end of 10 things I think about Hanoi Rocks. And I think you can tell how passionate we are about this band. I feel like every time I was talking, I was getting up and I'm like probably fucking shouting into the camera. So, hey, we would love it if you would go in the comments and maybe comment on things that we talked about and tell us the things that we missed about Hanoi Rocks. And with that, Marco, it's been forever coming, but it's been a blast having you on. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It was a real pleasure. I hope we can do it again.
Oh, we absolutely will because and at some point in the future, now we got to do our 10 favorite Hanoi Rocks songs, and then we got to rank the albums at some point too.
Yes.
So, you know Glitter Litter, right?
Yes.
I think he's a big fan because when we do something like that, I want to get like an.
I've known Andreas for 30 years.
Oh, okay.
I used to have with a buddy of mine a fanzine in the early 90s, late 80s called Leather Boys, based on Pretty Boy Floyd.
Yeah.
And he had Glitzine that was like basically the first online version, and we would swap. He would put our articles on his website and we would quote him in our fanzine. Yeah, I've known it for a long time. He's a massive fan.
Yes. So and shit, he had just commented on something about Hanoi Rocks, and I was like, fuck. But it was like today, and I was gonna say, hey man, do you wanna? But anyway, so we will rank the songs, we will rank the albums, and we'll maybe get some other Hanoi Rocks fans on there. Hey, I'm gonna put up Marco's X account. Follow him on X. Follow me on X at Hair Metal Guru. Check out my radio show on Rock 101 KLOL Hair Metal Mansion every Saturday from 6 to 8 Central Time. And hey, you have the opportunity to become a member. Costs a few bucks, but if you do, you get early access to some of the videos, you get first response to comments. Hey, whatever you can do to support the channel, I just appreciate you being here. Until the next video comes out, my name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care of yourselves.